So I was volunteering to answer phones with my Jewish youth group at the MDA Telethon on Labor Day. And there's a group of St. Louis Cardinals cheerleaders sitting in front of us also answering phones. It was pretty loud in the room, so I kept having to ask people who were pledging to repeat information about their names and their addresses. And the guy who was on the phone, I had asked him to repeat his name several times, and I was now having to ask him to repeat his address. So I tried to get creative, and I said, "Can you spell that?" And he said, H-I-L-L. But he was very nice about it. And in fact, he was so nice and patient that I decided to write down his name and phone number and slip it in my purse so that I could call and ask him on a date later. They hadn't done massive volunteer training with us. So a couple of weeks later, I was rummaging through my purse and I found the slip of paper. And I thought, okay, if I think about this too much, I'm gonna talk myself out of doing it. So I'm just gonna pick up the phone and call him. And I did. I picked up the phone, called real fast, and it rang once, and a guy answered, and I said, "Is Steve there?" And he said, "This is Steve." And I thought, shit. That's why you're supposed to think about these things before you do them, because I had nothing. So I started saying to him, "My name is Ann, and I answered the phone when you called the Labor Day Telethon." And he said, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. I haven't sent in my pledge yet because I lost the envelope." And I said, I wasn't actually calling about that. I just thought, well, you were really nice on the phone that day, and so I thought I'd call and see if you wanted to meet, maybe. And he kind of paused and went, "Oh, wow, are you one of the cheerleaders?" So I said, "No." I was there with my youth group, and he said, "Oh, how old are you?" And I said, 16. And I said, "How old are you?" And he said, 23. And he said, "Is that a problem for you?" And I said, "No." And I said, "Is it a problem for you?" And he said, "Man, you are brave, and I need to meet you." So we set up a date to go out to dinner that weekend. And as soon as I hung up the phone, I knew that my parents would not think this was okay. So I called my friend Lisa, and I set up a decoy that I was going to be spending the night at her house. But I wanted to be smart about this. And yeah, right? Too late. So I set up the date to meet at the restaurant where I worked. And we had dinner there, and after an hour of talking to him and having dinner, I had done my thorough background check. So I got in his truck with him and drove to the liquor store because he wanted to get us some wine to drink. And he asked me what kind I liked. And all I knew about wine at that time was Manischewitz kosher wine. But I knew that wasn't the right answer, so I let him pick. So then we drove to an office park and sat in the parking lot and passed back and forth this bottle and drank it. And when we were finished, we got out of the truck and we were looking at the stars, and he leaned over and kissed me. And and I thought it was so romantic. And I think at that point, he realized that he was a 23-year-old man kissing a 16-year-old girl, because he said to me, "I probably better get you back to your car." So he drove me back, and I never heard from Steve again. And the 50-year-old me is really happy with that. But as a 16-year-old, I was pretty bummed. And I really actually haven't thought about him in all these years, but as I was writing this story, I got curious about whatever became of this man. So no, I did not reach out to him again. But I did do a quick Facebook search, and what came up was a picture of him holding one of those big, huge checks for $10,000 to a charity from his company. So he did finally make up for that defaulted MDA pledge.